for the benefit of visitors and people watching online. On my immediate right is, on my immediate right is Steve Ashdown, who's Head of Planning Development Management. On his right is Steve King, who will be making the presentation on Crawley Down Road. Round the corner on his right is Anne Biggs, who is the Assistant Director of Planning and Sustainability, and on her right, joining us just for the Crawley Down Road application, is Stephen G from West Sussex County Council Highways Department. And on my left is Councillor Sweatman, my Vice Chairman, and on his left is Paul Weeks, the solicitor for this afternoon. So now moving on to the agenda, item 1, to note substitutions in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 4. We have none. We have no apologies for absence, as we have a full house of members this afternoon. And item 3, to receive declaration of interest from members in respect of any matter on the agenda. If any members do have anything to declare, could they please indicate on the system? I see none. So item 4, to agree by general affirmation the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 15th of August. If members are happy that I sign those as a true record, can they just say so? Agreed. Thank you very much. Item 5, to consider any items that the Chairman agrees to take as urgent business. I have none. So we now move on to the substantive part of the agenda. And item 6 is DM 230810, land south of Crawley Down Road, Felbridge, East Grinstead, RH19 2PP. And I'd invite Steve King to make the presentation, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Before I start on the presentation, I'll quickly go through the update sheet for members. You'll see had one further representation in relation to the application, not raising any new issues. The next items on the sheet are just corrections, typos, etc. Para 12.246 is a clarification regarding the TAD figure, suggesting a further planning condition be added, just covering the details of works related to the wheelchair accessible flat, just to cover that point off, and some additional informatives relating to highway matters that were suggested or put forward by West Sussex County Council. And then just a final clarification, the report, a couple of occasions, refers to Crawley Down Parish Council. It should be Worth Parish Council. So just to run through the planning application. So the application seeks full planning permission for the demolition of the existing structures within the red line and the erection of 200 1, 2, 3 and 4 bedroom dwellings, 30% of which would be affordable, with new access points off Crawley Down Road, together with associated open space within the site. So this is the application site on the screen, outlined in red. So you can see that it's essentially 2 field parcels, east and the west, that total some 8.5 hectares in area. There's a gradual fall in levels through the site from north down to south, and there's a bridleway that runs through the centre of the site here, north-south. So the eastern boundary of the site here is marked by trees and hedging, and beyond the site there's an area of land laid to grass with some trees. There's a current planning application for 20 dwellings on that land at the moment. It's referred to in the report. Southern boundary, the site is marked by trees and hedging. Beyond that is Felbridge Water, and then the other side of the stream, the land rises up again. There's again laid to grass, some trees marking various field boundaries. As I've mentioned, bridleway runs through the centre of the site. It's quite well enclosed. There's trees on either side of the bridleway as it goes through the site. Up here on the eastern side are large detached properties at Oak Farm Place and Leybourne Place, two cul-de-sacs accessed off the Crawley Down Road. To the north here, you've got the recreation ground, King George's Field, comprises fields at the southern end with the tennis courts, and car parking, and a pavilion at the northern part of that site. Then the western side of the site, again, field parcel, all laid to grass. Residential properties to the north. To the west, it's quite well enclosed again with trees and hedging. There's some new housing that's been constructed on the western side of the site here. So just to go through the designations that this site is subject to, this is an extract from the district plan. So in terms of planning policy, the entirety of the site is allocated for residential development in site SA19 in the site allocations document, which is the pink area here, with the exception of 123 Crawley Down Road. I'll come on to that later in the presentation. So you can see on the plan around 420 metres or so to the south is the land that's also allocated in the site allocations DPD at Imberhorn Upper School, and that's referred to in paragraph 912 of the report, the actual details of that site allocation, but geographically that's where that allocation is. So just in a bit more detail, this is the site itself, the allocation. The black line is the built-up area boundary, and that built-up area boundary has now been extended and wraps around here, so it includes these houses at the end, and the whole site is within the built-up area of East Grinstead. This area is also now all within the built-up area of East Grinstead, as you can see from the key below. In terms of the boundary with Tandridge District Council, the easternmost access, the far northern part of the site there, that's within Tandridge. So this line also is denoting the district boundary. So Crawley Down Road at this point onwards is within Tandridge, so it's Surrey County Council, who are the highway authority at this point. And then from here onwards, it's West Sussex County Council. Just some other designations in and around the site. So the green area or green line is the bridleway that runs through the centre of the site. So that's the application site here. The purple lines are public footpaths. So you can see how the public footpath network relates to the site. The red lines byway, but that's within East Grinstead. So just in terms of the application itself, say seeks full planning permission for the erection of 200 dwellings. This is the proposed site layout. The scheme includes a mixture of detached, semi-detached and terraced houses, 164 in total, along with some flats, 36, and the scheme, as I said, provides 60 affordable units. The mix of the dwellings is set out in the report in para 10.2. So the plans show that the proposal will be served by 2 vehicular access points. So the eastern field served by a new access created here following the demolition of 71 Crawley Down Road, detached property on the site at the moment. So that's where the access would come through to serve the eastern field parcel. Western field parcel will be served by an access here that would be formed following the demolition of 123 Crawley Down Road. So that would come in and then serve the western field parcel. There would be no vehicular crossover over the bridleway, but there will be pedestrian connections from both sites to that bridleway, so you'll be able to walk across, but you won't be able to drive from one side of the site to the other. The layout shows a locally equipped area for play in this location here, and another area of open space in the western field parcel located here. The western field parcel is bounded by the 3-storey flats, and I'll come on to the heights plan in a second, but the flats that front onto the open space are located either side. So in terms of the mix and the tenure, so this plan shows the makeup of the units. That's all set out in the committee report. But in terms of the affordable housing and the first homes, they're marked by the red, blue and green dots. So if they're not that clear, they're located this area here, these units here, the units in here, the block of flats on the corner there, group of dwellings there, and the group of dwellings there. So they are mixed through the site, but again, I'll come on to that as we go through the presentation. Just in terms of heights of the development, vast majority is 2-storey. Some 2.5-storey units within the site with houses with rooms in roof, and the 3-storey flats are within the centre of the site, fronting onto the open space, so this area here. This plan just shows the differing densities within the site. So the western side is a higher density than the eastern side. In effect, the eastern side, eastern field parcel is broken up by the line of trees that's runs through here. So it makes it more difficult to develop that eastern field parcel, whereas the western side is completely clear. In terms of materials, it's the traditional pallet materials that the application's proposing. The keys set out there, and we'll come on to some sample elevations and street scenes, but a fairly traditional approach to the proposed development on the site. And that's just a plan that shows the applicant's intentions regarding highway adoption. So the majority of roads within the site are intended to be put up for adoption. In terms of the detailed points of access, so this top plan shows the eastern access point, which, as I said before, is actually within Tandridge, but it will be a simple T-junction with the footways extended around, and then a crossing point on the Crawley Down Road, and then similar arrangement on the western field parcel, simple T-junction and again, footway extended round and then crossing point to allow you to cross over the road. There is no footway on this side of Crawley Down Road. Just some street scenes taken through the site, so you can see the type of units that are proposed. So that's various sections through the site. Larger sections again showing the traditional design approach. Flats within the centre, so that section there. And the final set of sections of units within the site. So, as I say, a fairly traditional approach that the applicants are proposing. Just a bit more detail, some sample elevations. So that's plots 18 and 19, semi-detached units, PV panels on the roofs of the dwellings, various detached units or plots throughout the site. Again, you can see the PV panels and the flats, the private flats at the top left, the affordable the top right, and I think you can see that there's essentially no difference in the external appearance of the flats between the private and the affordable. And just an example of some of the terraced units within the site. This plan, just a colour plan, so hopefully shows a bit clearer some of the proposed landscaping within the site. So tree-lined streets within the site. Detention basins that are referred to in the committee report. So that's the eastern side of the site and the eastern detention basin. And again, similar arrangement on the western side. So that's the open space in the centre of the site, tree-lined streets, and again the detention basin at the southern lowest point of the site. And just some photos. So this is the existing house on the eastern side that would be demolished to make way for the access into the eastern side. That's some photos of 123, which is this property, which would be demolished to make the access into the western part of the site. So it's this property here. Just some views up and down Crawley Down Road itself, so you can get just gives a flavour of the character of the road. So the footway is on the southern side of the northern side of the road, but that's views just up and down Crawley Down Road. Some pictures of the eastern field parcel. This is the line of trees within that field parcel that effectively breaks it up into two. That's the far eastern boundary where we've got planning application beyond there. These are views within the site. These are views again from within the eastern field parcel, but looking north up to the detached properties at Oak Farm Close. Some views of the western field parcel, views looking north to the houses on Crawley Down Road. This is looking to the far western boundary of the site, so you can see the new houses beyond. That's looking again northwards within the site. And that's just some views up and down the public right-of-way, the bridleway that runs through the site. I think it's locally it's referred to as the gullage. So if I go back to the proposed layout. So in terms of the issues regarding the application, they are all set out in the committee report, and appreciate the committee report is quite lengthy, so I won't go through them in any great detail. in the presentation. I'll just flag up a few of the main points just to introduce it for members really. So in terms of the principle and the legal framework, as members know, planning legislation holds that planning applications should be determined in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. So that's all set out in section 11 of the report. The principle of the development of this site is established by virtue of the fact that the site is allocated for development under policy SA 19 in the site allocations DPD, and that is part of the development plan. So the principle of development is established. Transport matters, a key issue for this application. They're dealt with in section 12.12 onwards of the report, and that's broken down into various subsections. Access arrangements dealt with in para 12.17 onwards of the report. In terms of the comments that we've received from the two highway authorities, they are set out in full in the appendices to the report, and neither highway authority has an objection to the proposed access points onto the public highway. You'll see in the report that the application proposes some traffic calming measures on the Surrey section of the Crawley Down Road, i.e. eastwards up here. That's referred to in para 12.12.25 of the report. And you'll see that Surrey have accepted what the applicants have provided demonstrates the feasibility of delivering a traffic calming scheme. But they do want to see the further details regarding that, and that's suggested in the conditions that they put forward that are set out in the committee report. In terms of the impact on the highway network, that's dealt with in paras 12.27 onwards. So that's all in the committee report. Again, I won't go into any great detail on that, but again, both highway authorities haven't objected to the application on highway capacity matters. In terms of sustainable transport, that's dealt with in para 12.36 onwards of the report, and you'll see that Surrey County Council want the developer to provide a number of off-site improvements for footways around the site and for the developer to deliver those, and that's reflected in the conditions that are set out in the committee report. In terms of the internal site layout and parking, officers are content that that's acceptable. That's all dealt with in paragraph 12.46 onwards. Concerns regarding previous schemes and what's happened with those, that's set out in 12.57 of the committee report. We need to make it clear that irrespective of what's happened in relation to any previous consents, that wouldn't be a reason to seek to resist this planning application, which must be looked at on its own individual merits. So in terms of just transport conclusions, they're set out in 12.65 of the committee report. Other main issues, just to briefly go through them, landscape matters, and that's dealt with paras 12.7 onwards of the report, and for the reasons that we've set out, we consider that the scheme is acceptable in landscape terms. The majority of the trees around the site will be retained. The trees that border the public right-of-way are retained, so that the character or be it changing within the site as a result of the allocation. The boundary treatment means that the site is well contained. In terms of the layout, housing mix, sustainability, etc., the layout's generally considered to be sound by your officers. It's perimeter block layout essentially, which as members know is a sound way of organising development. So it allows for traditional back-to-back relationships, houses facing outwards onto the boundary screening, open space in the centre of the site there. So it's generally regarded as a sound way of laying out sites. And for the reasons we've set out in the report, although this is the denser side of the site in terms of numbers, on the ground, housing development continues as you go further westwards. So there is on the ground a transition from what would be this site to lower density housing that already exists as you progress further eastwards. So we don't consider that to be harmful, the fact that this side is higher density than the eastern field parcel. The affordable housing meets policy requirements, and as I showed how it's distributed, it is pepper potted appropriately through the site. Trees, that's dealt with paras 12.167 onwards. There's one preserved tree that would need to be removed for the development, and that's located here. And for the reasons set out in the report, overall it's considered to be acceptable in relation to trees. Just on biodiversity, you'll see that the council's ecological consultant has no objection to the application. And in terms of biodiversity net gain, the application isn't subject to the 10% mandatory BNG because it was submitted before that came into effect. So the applicants are only required under policy, the policies in the site allocations development plan document to provide a gain. So that's set out in the committee report. So there is a gain that the applicants would be providing, so that the scheme is policy compliant in that respect. In terms of drainage, essentially the site is intended to drain, attenuate on site, water held in the detention ponds and then released at the Greenfield runoff rate into the Fellbridge water. But the details of that are set out in the drainage section of the report. Infrastructure, that's dealt with paragraph 12.241 onwards of the report. So the applicants are providing the infrastructure requirements that have been set out by various consultees. So in summary, for the reasons that we've set out in the committee report, officers do think that the scheme does comply with the development plan when it's read as a whole, and therefore the scheme is recommended for approval, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Steve. Right, we'll now move on to the public speakers. I emphasise that speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. I will try and indicate when there's 1 minute left, and if you do go beyond 3 minutes, I will request that you complete your presentation in one sentence. The time, I don't know if it's shown on both screens, it's certainly shown on the screen up there. The time runs down from the 3 minutes. So the first speaker representing today East Grinstead Town Council is Councillor Ian Gibson. And the time starts when you start speaking. 3 minutes starts when you start speaking.
Good afternoon, committee. East Grinstead Town Council has discussed this application on 4 occasions over the past 2 years. On each occasion, the Town Council has identified serious concerns over the adverse impacts of the proposed development on a range of social, economic and environmental factors and on traffic in particular. The Town Council's primary concern is that the A264-A22 Felbridge junction is acknowledged to be operating at overcapacity, and traffic is subject to severe delays on the increasingly regular occasions that emergency repairs are necessary. The officer's report refers to the joint West Sussex and Surrey County Council corridor study, and the committee should be aware that the study has failed to identify any major road network mitigations and proposes to rely on active travel measures to ease congestion. Yet the reality is that the residents of this development will rely on cars, and this is recognised by the application by the inclusion of over 450 car parking spaces. Now, I want to draw your attention to the application for 61 homes on the eastern half of the site submitted in October 2022. The officer's report ignores this application, but it has significant relevance in respect of the scope of the traffic and other assessments. The Town Council discussed this application in December 2023 and recommended that the adverse impacts of SA19 needed to be assessed as a whole and not just 61. This view was supported by the Highways Authority, who went further and requested that the applicant provided a cumulative assessment with the adjacent 550 home development on Imberhorn Farm, which is SA20. The applicant has provided the cumulative assessment as part of this application. The Imberhorn Farm development will give rise to other cumulative impacts, and the committee members should consider whether these also need to be considered now. The Town Council's response to the cumulative impact of SA19 and SA20 and the associated failure of the Highways authorities to implement the funded mitigations for recent developments is to seek a Grampian condition that future S106 agreements will be executed prior to the first housing occupations. Such a condition would tie the Highways Authority into delivering the mitigations that they receive developers' contributions for, and the committee should consider requesting if they are reminded to approve the application. Context of this site is that it's part of a sweep of new developments on the western side of East Grinstead, amounting in total to 1,200 homes. Site abuts a rat run in an area of acknowledged traffic congestion, frequent domestic power and water supply interruptions, and local health services in special measures. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Right, the next speaker is Claire Burton-Tucker from Infrastructure First.
Okay, if I stand up, please.
If you prefer, then it's not a problem at all.
Anyone regularly visiting East Grinstead will know congestion has become horrendous. Both Surrey and West Sussex openly acknowledged roads have been operating over capacity for years. Yet your Highways Authority raises no concerns over the impact from this 200-dwelling application, just a short distance from the Felbridge Junction. When considering traffic impacts, the Highways Authority sets the bar for refusal in the full knowledge that a junction operating over capacity is unlikely ever to reach it. The Infrastructure First submission highlighted persistent failures to implement junction improvements in East Grinstead, those that West Sussex Highways themselves committed to deliver. All large-scale developments in East Grinstead going back a decade or more have been allowed on the basis that their traffic impact be mitigated by junction improvements. Not a single junction improvement has been forthcoming, not a single one. 3 of these developments went to appeal and only allowed on the strength of assurances that the established Atkins improvement would be implemented at the Felbridge Junction. It hasn't been and it won't be. The junction improvement scheme has now been officially abandoned. A further study of the Felbridge Junction undertaken by WSP in 2019 failed to come up with any workable options at all. In their submission, Surrey Highways confirmed there is no deliverable improvement scheme for the Felbridge Junction. West Sussex Highways went further in their response to the 2022 development plan, saying that improvements to the Felbridge Junction might not be deliverable in the future. Yet, you are now being asked to approve this application in the hope that a contribution to the new corridor project will be effective in resolving the burgeoning traffic situation. Even if we assume the project will identify a solution, it will require government funding to deliver it. As the Aronswood bypass has recently been scrapped as unaffordable, central funding seems unlikely. They couldn't prove the junction to be severely impacted, yet Surrey Highways do not support the application. Their official response shows that they are not satisfied that the overriding SA19 policies have been met, and it's misleading for this to be overlooked. In considering the planning balance, the committee report should have included both the Surrey Highways concerned and the very significant levels of unmitigated traffic impacts from earlier schemes, but it doesn't. Until junction improvements have been identified and their delivery secured, we simply cannot assume that the application traffic will ever be mitigated. Failure to take proper account of the application traffic or to tackle the significant backlog of committed mitigation in East Grinstead threatens the economic prosperity of the town. It would therefore be premature to approve this application until the corridor project has concluded, and we would urge you not to do so.
Thank you very much. Right, the third speaker against the application is Councillor Jeremy Clark from Felbridge Parish Council. Again, 3 minutes will start when you start speaking.
Thank you. Surrey Highways declared the Star Junction as severe in 2018. There are definitions for a severe junction, but they are digital. It is either severe or it is not. NPPF paragraph 115 states development should only be prevented or refused on highway grounds if the residual impacts on the road network would be severe. So a proposed development that would make a junction severe fails this test. But it's virtually impossible to prove the impact of a development is severe when the junction is already in that state, as there is no definition of more severe. I have met with the Surrey Highways officer dealing with this consultation. He says that they cannot prove the residual impacts would be severe because the junction is already severe. Therefore, under paragraph 115, it cannot be refused on highways grounds. Hence, Surrey offers no objection to the proposal. However, Surrey do not see SA19 as highway grounds. It's not an extension of the NPPF paragraph 115. It's a list of site-specific criteria approved by the inspector. And the transport element is a specific test the inspector added himself as an amendment to be determined by Mid-Sussex. Surrey Highways have provided their expert advice on the SA19 criteria within their note to Planning Officer, Committee Report, page 149. It is the view of Surrey County Council as County Highways Authority that the SA19 requirement has not been met by the proposals in their current form. They then say what is necessary to demonstrate compliance with that policy, including further capacity modelling assessments and additional scenarios. Their consultation response was the 18th of December 23. The revised transport assessment submitted on the 16th of January does not include any new capacity analysis or the additional scenarios. So nothing has changed that would alter Surrey's opinion that it does not demonstrate compliance with SA19. West Sussex Highways don't mention policy SA19 or their assessment of compliance in any of their responses. Paragraph 2.11
1 minute left.
of the committee report states, as neither Highways Authority has objected to the scheme, it is considered the applicants have sufficiently addressed policies DP21 and SA19. This statement is making a huge assumption regarding the Highways Authority's assessments of the SA19 test. There is no corroborating statement from West Sussex, and Surrey County Council state that SA19 has not met the proposals in their current form. As SA19 is afforded significant weight in the planning decision, it isn't sound to approve this application until clear confirmation that both highway authorities are satisfied this proposal meets the transport test in SA19 that was written by the inspector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, does Stephen King or Stephen G want to respond, or would they prefer to wait till the speaker's in favour? Mr. Wayne, okay. In that case, we will go on to the fourth speaker, which is Philip Allen from Boyer Planning. And again, 3 minutes will start when you start speaking.
Good afternoon. My name is Philip Allen of Boyer, and as a planning agent, I'm speaking in support of the application in front of you. As members will be aware, the site was promoted through the development plan process, which involves significant discussions with your council's planning policy officers over a long period of time. In addition, the appropriateness of the site to accommodate 200 new homes was thoroughly assessed by the council, with the result that it was considered suitable, available and achievable by officers, and proposed for allocation within the council's then emerging site allocation plan. The plan was then examined by an independent inspector who found the plan and proposed site allocation sound, with it subsequently being adopted in June 2022. The site allocation within the plan, SA19, includes a number of design considerations with the overriding objective of delivering 200 new homes within a landscape-led master plan, whilst also amending the settlement boundary as to include the site. The application proposals in front of you have been developed paying full regard to the site allocation guidance and informed by a number of pre-application meetings with your planning officers, including presentations to the Council's design review panel. This dialogue has continued throughout the formal application process. The development will be focused around new areas of public and accessible open space with housing fronting onto these spaces to create an active and safe environment. Across the development, there will be variations in densities and house styles in order to create a sense of place, whilst new pedestrian and cycle connections will be provided to ensure connectivity with existing and other new development, as well as the wider countryside to the south. Aside from the need to create new points of access, the layout incorporates existing established trees and other landscape features, whilst the southern edge of the site, close to Fellbridge Water, includes attenuation basins, which will also form positive aspects of the landscaping scheme. This approach, along with proposed new planting, seeks to provide the development of a green and pleasant setting. A holistic approach has been taken through a combination of on and off-site measures to ensure that the proposals achieve a biodiversity net gain. The new public open space will include equipped areas of play, with the main play area directly accessible from the existing playing field to the north, thereby enhancing the recreational offer of this space. The proposed means of vehicular access via 2 points along Crawley Down Road mean that there is no need for vehicles to cross the existing bridleway that bisects the site, thereby helping to protect the character and amenity of the right-of-way. Considerable thought has gone into creating and delivering a high-quality development which fully accords with the objectives and considerations of the site allocation. I hope that you're able to support your officer's recommendation and approve the application today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Andrew Whittingham, again from Boyer Planning.
Thank you. I'm Andrew Whittingham, a Director of Motion, and have been involved with the scheme on behalf of Barrett David Wilson since 2019. The transport implications of the land allocation have been rigorously tested through the local plan process and found acceptable by an independent inspector. Similarly, the local highway authorities, West Sussex County Council and Surrey County Council, and National Highways have all found the impact of the proposal acceptable in local and national planning policy terms. I'll firstly deal with the matter that I know is one of the main concerns of residents and yourselves. Much analysis and discussion with officers has taken place about the impact the development might have on the A22 London Road A274 Copthorne Road junction at Fellbridge. You'll be aware of the many studies which have been undertaken over many years by the public authorities and others, and the reality is that no solutions have yet been found acceptable. It has always been recognised that this is a busy junction, congested at peak and other times. The National Planning Policy Framework, the framework, is however quite clear on this matter, and I won't repeat paragraph 115, I'm sure you're very familiar with it. The impact of the development at the Fellbridge Road junction has been fully assessed and set out within our transport assessments and agreed as minimal, i.e. not severe. The package of sustainable transport measures is as follows. A TAD contribution, total access contribution of over £700,000 for public transport improvements along the A22 corridor, real-time information along Crawley Down Road and improvements to the public right-of-way network, Rothway. Additionally, Copenhagen-style crossings will be provided at junctions along Crawley Down Road to maximise pedestrian safety and convenience, and a scheme of traffic calming has been designed to reduce vehicle speeds along Crawley Down Road. These measures, therefore, do not rely upon a scheme coming forward at the Felbridge junction, but can be directed to an acceptable scheme if an acceptable scheme comes forward in the future. In summary, this is a proposal compliant with the framework and your own adopted local plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, and the final speaker is Sean Havis.
Thank you. Good afternoon, councillors. My name is Sean Havis and I'm the Planning Manager at Barrett David Wilson, Southern Counties. I would firstly like to thank you for this opportunity to speak in support of our full planning application today. The application you're considering today is a result of 10 years of work. It was taken through the site allocations DPD process and follows positive and proactive discussions with your officers from Mid-Sussex, Tandridge, West Sussex and Surrey. It has been an extensive but productive process and has ensured that the application before you delivers a policy-compliant, sustainable and high-quality development. There are no objections from any statutory consultees. Neither of the county highways authorities or national highways have objected. We have also received formal confirmation from both the Environment Agency and your District Council's drainage engineers that the development does not propose a flood risk. The homes here will be high quality and include a mix of homes, from 1 and 2 bedroom apartments to 2, 3 and 4 bedroom houses. 60 of these will be affordable homes, of which 5% are designed for wheelchair users. All dwellings meet national described space standards and have been carefully designed to reflect the local vernacular, with the inclusion of traditional design features alongside external enhancements such as tile hanging. All homes are designed to meet or exceed the latest building regulations, with the inclusion of enhanced insulation, photovoltaic panels and wastewater heat recovery systems, in addition to dedicated cycle storage and electric vehicle charging points for each and every home. Many of these homes will be built by a timber-led construction, a modern method of construction which seeks to use sustainable materials, reduce waste and speed up build time frames to enable the efficient delivery of new homes to the local area. The open spaces provided are carefully distributed and integrated throughout the development and have been designed with advice from the charity organisations Make Space for Girls and WizKids to ensure we create inclusive spaces for all. We've ensured the development isn't a closed community, providing connections to the adjacent developments on the site's eastern, western and northern boundaries, along with numerous additional connections to Worthway. We've enhanced the open spaces within the scheme by retaining existing hedgerows and trees around the perimeter, and have sought to integrate bat and bird boxes alongside creating hedgehog highways in rear gardens to promote ecological permeability. This is further assisted by our partnership with the RSPB and our inclusion of over 200 Swift bricks. Overall, it is of mine and Barrett David Wilson's view that the proposal in front of you will deliver a sustainable, high quality and attractive development. I therefore respectfully ask that members support their officer's recommendation to approve this application and ensure delivery of housing in accordance with the approved development plan. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you very much. Right, gentlemen, a lot of it is on highways. Which of you would like to go first? Steve King, right.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So as we've heard from the speakers, a lot of concern regarding highways and the highways impacts of the scheme, and I think a concern that's been raised by the speakers is whether the scheme properly addresses the comments and concerns of Surrey County Council in respect of the actual policy as it's set out in SA 19. So SA 19 is set out in full on page 32 onwards of your report, and the highways and access section of that policy is on page 34. And I think it's what's been drawn out by the speakers is the paragraph that refers to working collaboratively with and to the satisfaction of both Surrey and West Sussex County Council highway authorities, mitigate development impacts by maximising sustainable transport enhancements. Where additional impacts remain, highway mitigation measures will be considered. And I think it's probably that element that is of a particular concern by the speakers, in light of the note to the planning officer that's set out in the Surrey's comments, which are in full in the appendix. But you will see from what Surrey County Council have said in their full comments and in the note to officer section, is that the proposals are reliant on sustainable transport improvements to mitigate impacts at the junction. And it goes on, this is all on page 155. They recognise that the site is a local plan allocation, and then go on to say that the sustainable transport measures included in the list of their suggested conditions has been identified in order that the sustainability of the development is maximised. So Surrey haven't raised an objection to the planning application on the basis that, or subject to the conditions that they were seeking regarding the Copenhagen crossings and the additional crossing on the A264 and the traffic calming measures on the Crawley Down Road are delivered. So that is what they're saying, that they don't have an objection to the application subject to those sustainable transport measures being incorporated into the scheme, and that's reflected in the conditions in the committee report that we're recommending to cover those two particular issues. I think that's probably all I'd want to say at the moment, just on that particular point.
Okay, thank you. Stephen G, do you want to add anything to that, and especially the comments about the monies that have already been paid over on other schemes?
Yeah, I've got a couple of other points just to cover first, if that's all right.
Please do.
Just firstly, the cumulative assessment. One was provided within a technical note that included the Imberhorn farm allocation, and important to note, it did include an element of double counting because the traffic figures from Imberhorn were added as well as Tempro growth figures, which would have already included them. So it provides a robust scenario for assessment. And the second point I was going to make was it's not West Sussex who have set the MPPF Para 115. It is national guidance, and officers have had appeals where we've tried to go down a severe line, so we have experience of what levels an inspector in West Sussex doesn't consider as severe. We also read other relevant inspectors' decisions to try and work out what a severe impact is. And yes, it does set an incredibly high bar. In terms of monies collected, we do have funds collected from previous developments within the area that are currently sort of ring-fenced towards the study that is taking place to look at improvements to the corridor. The primary focus is sustainable transport, so getting more people walking, cycling, using public transport. There may be minor junction upgrades, but as a whole, the whole transport policy is not to facilitate and expand car use by making the junctions easier to go through. It's to try and get people using more sustainable transport.
Thank you very much. Right, we'll open the discussion to members. Now, Councillor Whitaker, I would normally ask the ward councillor, and on this occasion, as he's indicated, I'd invite you to speak first.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, this is my ward. First of all, I'd like to thank all the 6 speakers for your contributions. As a ward member, I would like to thank the speakers because I've worked with each and everybody that's spoken here over a number of years, including the applicant. I've attended at least, I think, 3 design review panels. Thank you for that. And I do know that the applicant has changed substantially the scheme with the officers, in the design review panel. So, they have been working consistently. I would corroborate with that. So I thank everybody for their contribution, not just today, but over the years. I was also integral in forming and adopting the East Grinstead Neighbourhood Plan between 2014 and 2016. I've been a town councillor for 13 years, district councillor for 7. I was also involved with the development of the site allocations DPD on the working group and subsequently involved in site allocation. So I was very, very familiar with this site. But in my 13 years as a town councillor, we have had a string of substantial and expensive transport reports produced and considered at various times. Atkins 1 and 2 between 2010 2012, the Jubb report, which related to the Hill Place Farm development, which subsequently now built out for 200 houses in 2014, the WSP report, which is less publicised by this council, but more used by the Tandridge District Council and Surrey County Council, their report of 2019, which is published on the Tandridge local plan examination, does say some very important corroborative evidence that the junction at the start, particularly the A22 and 264, guess what, is over capacity. And every single report in that time has said the same thing. Let's, and I appreciate what West Sussex County Council Highways have said, and they've said that consistently. But the people of East Grinstead know that that junction operates over and above capacity. It's obvious, everybody knows it. East Grinstead Town Council and particularly Felbridge Parish Council, who are right on that junction, have said it for 12 years. Everybody seems to listen at the District Council, at Tandridge, at crucially the two county councils, particularly West Sussex, but nothing is done. That's been highlighted today. It's been highlighted by the Town Council consistently for 12 years. There was a stack and string of accumulated Section 106 TAD money, as referenced already, that West Sussex Highways have in a pot. It's been squirreled away over 10 years. But West Sussex and Surrey together, collaboratively, because obviously it's a split land ownership issue, just seem incapable, it seems, by the local people of any meaningful action to address this particular key junction. I take the mode change and we get travel plans and sustainability plans, and it'd be great if everybody could walk and everybody could cycle. But realistically, we all know in our hearts that's really not going to happen. Councillor Bates, I know, goes everywhere on a bike, but both applications today rely on modal shift, and it's the buzzword. But in my opinion, it doesn't live in the real world. But the key thing for me is there is no commitment from this district council or the county council and Surrey County Council. They're working in individual silos that they will sort this junction once and for all, despite repeated requests from all local councils and councillors over many years. Sadly, I think my view is that the planning system fails to address the problem of non-delivery of much needed infrastructure, not just roads. However, this application has got substantial 106 contributions, education nearly 1.7 million, roads 720,000, NHS, much talked about, 304,000, the SANG payment contribution here, just under 1.3 million, substantial contributions. Community buildings, 264k, and sport, 204k. So a total of just under 4.7 million infrastructure contributions. Substantial contributions, £23,000 a unit. That is not insubstantial, that's significant. However, this district council produced in 2019-20 their infrastructure delivery plan, and the total contributions for this site that were estimated but published, and it's still on the website, were 6.5 million. So, we're 2 million short of that infrastructure delivery plan figure, notwithstanding that 4.6 million is a substantial figure. There's still a 2 million discrepancy. So the key questions, will infrastructure be ring-fenced and delivered? Will the 1.7, these are questions, will the 1.7 million for education be ring-fenced for Felbridge Primary School, Imberhorn Secondary School, who are desperate for buildings to be upgraded? They've got a potential unification project. We've got 567,000, another TAD contribution, in addition to the pot that we have already got Will that be ring-fenced to the Star junction, please? Will the 304,000 be spent on either Moatfield surgery or modality GP surgeries in East Grinstead? Because they have a crying need for building and facility upgrades. But there are no guarantees. The system and this district council cannot provide guarantees that this money, subject to approval and build out and payment, will be spent. It's very frustrating. This is a good site. It's gone through the allocation process very professionally and properly, as I can see. But it fails to guarantee the delivery of this badly needed infrastructure. So at this time, I'm unable to support this approval unless, as suggested by Councillor Gibson, a Grampian-style planning condition or 106 clause can be included, particularly for the delivery of the Star Junction upgrade. Thank you.
Do either of you want to comment on that now?
Yeah, I'll come back on some of the points that Councillor Whittaker's raised. In terms of I'll start with the infrastructure delivery plan and the figures that are referred to in that. When that piece of work was produced, it was a document to inform the planning policy process. So the figures in there were the figures at the time, based on an estimate of what might be needed from a particular site. So each site, as you know, has figures associated with it, all the different sites. But that's a snapshot in time. When it comes to the actual planning application, we have to consult with the statutory consultees, so the county council, NHS, our own internal leisure department, and the infrastructure figures that come out for a planning application as it's submitted are based on what's required to mitigate the impact of that development at the time that it comes in. And those figures will be based on the cost of providing X, Y, and Z. They're not plucked out of the air, so they're based on a footing of what various things will cost. But the figures that we have are what's required to mitigate the impact of this development. In terms of where the monies can be spent, it does need to be set out in the Section 106 legal agreement where those monies are to be spent. So if we're collecting monies for transport works or off-site leisure works, place-based works in East Grinstead, that money can't go and be spent down in Burgess Hill. It's set out in the legal agreement because it's only lawful to collect that money to mitigate the impacts of this development. So it can't go somewhere completely different. It has to be related to the development itself. So we would set out in the legal agreement exactly where those monies are to be spent. There could be alternative options, but it would need to be related to this development. So it wouldn't be spent on something completely unrelated, because that wouldn't be lawful to do that.
Thank you. Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I feel that this planning application has to be supported. It's very disappointing that we're hearing most of this discussion and debate is about the highway issues. I mean, the irony of it is this weekend I'll be visiting a community which resolved this sort of matter over 50 years ago. So when I go there this weekend, there's no traffic problems and the infrastructure's been built up. And that's what should have been done here in East Grinstead all those years ago. So we just have to concentrate on this planning application. And I mean, it's on a level playing field, etc., etc. It ticks all the boxes. The only thing that I was really peeved about was the separation of the two site areas with a bridleway. And in Haywards Heath, when we had the same situation, the developer was allowed to drive 2 roads across it. So you can see I was very upset by that visit. And then we walked down to the stream, a crossing point, which had a sort of bridge across it, and the barrier protecting into the stream had disappeared. And all I can say is if the applicant could be minded to try and improve the bridleway and reinstate the barrier, it would be much appreciated. So, yeah, I mean, the only other thing that I often talk about is the pullover lanes to move into the site, where there's additional traffic. And I don't think we've seen any planning applications since I've been on this council that do that. And I just look forward to the day when we see a planning application as a pullover crossing lane to control the traffic.
Thank you. Sorry, just as I call Councillor Bates, I saw the flash up. Did you, Simon G, Stephen G, sorry, did you want to respond to Councillor Whitaker's comment?
Yeah, it's just on the previous comments and the suggestion of a Grampian condition. And it's really just to reiterate that the application has assessed the junction with Imberhorn Farm. Yes, it is over capacity in the PM peak. It does require the signals to be rephased as shown within the applicant's transport modelling, but the queues aren't considered severe by West Sussex Highways Authority. Therefore, there wouldn't need to be a condition for the improvements to take place for the application to be approved.
Okay, thank you very much.
And you just want me to touch on the
please do, yes.
It's just to confirm there are contributions towards the upgrade of the right-of-way that bisects the site, and the improvements would be undertaken by West Sussex Highways team.
Fine, thank you very much. Councillor Jackson.
Right, thank you, Chairman. 3 things I want to say. First of all, this particular site has been established in principle as somewhere to build houses in the site allocation DPD document, which has been accepted. Secondly, we've heard a lot about traffic. When I do use the A264, A22, it's not only busy at peak periods, especially the morning peak, but also moving down southwards from that junction into East Grinstead, where there's also hold-ups all the way down into the town centre. If this will discourage some of the residents not to use their cars, but to walk or cycle to the town centre or to the station, then that will help to, one, alleviate sort of the traffic problem to some extent, but also be good for the environment in reducing greenhouse emissions. Certainly, 200 houses will only add a small proportion to the total traffic through that junction, because quite a lot of the junction is well away from East Grinstead, a lot of the users. The second point is, I noticed in one of the slides there was sort of a bit of flooding on the land on this site. When I visited it yesterday, the site does dip away down to the south of the site, and then it goes to attenuation ponds, which will accept sort of rapid flow of water and then slowly release it into the stream. But I'm going to ask the planning officer is, it talks about sustainable drainage on the site. Is there a requirement in the plan to make sure that any front of houses are still maintained sustainable, because there's a common practice of concreting over to get another car parking space? So was there a requirement ongoing not to sort of affect the drainability of the fronts of the houses?
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, we're not proposing a planning condition to remove permitted development rights to put additional hard standing down. But I think if you look at the site of the application, in terms of the houses, that their frontages, there isn't a vast amount of space where they don't have large front gardens, for example, that you might want to pave over perhaps to get an extra car parking space, for example. So I don't think it would be necessary to have that sort of planning condition to remove that permitted development right. And in any event, if you to pave over your front garden, for example, to have it as permitted development, it has to be permeable or be able to drain to a permeable place anyway. There isn't a right to just concrete over somewhere and have it draining straight into the road, for example. So I don't think that would be necessary. The various drainage elements of the scheme within the site, the car parking areas, for example, that's would be left with the management company as well, so there wouldn't be changes to the sort of communal areas either around the flats. So I don't think there would be a concern from the issue that you've identified for those reasons.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Peacock.
Thank you, Chairman. Starting off, I think, first of all, we all accept that the principle of development is there. It's in the DPD, it's been for a process. And it's been commented that traffic is a key issue. I think it's got to be remembered from maybe newer members or members who are not from East Grinstead. Since 2011 or 12, traffic has been constantly raised through evidence, and West Sussex own evidence, as a key issue. I'll give you an example. The first report, Atkins, published in 2012, said the do something solution would mitigate, bear with me, 955 houses. So here we are 12, 13 years later, and we've built or approved north of 2,000. That's over double what some improvement, minimum some improvements, if they were implemented, would have alleviated. That hasn't happened. So I do have sympathy, and I can understand the frustrations of local councillors, residents, and Councillor Whittaker. Secondly, there has been money put by for road improvements, junction improvements, and they haven't been undertaken. So in this document, I didn't see it, maybe I've missed it, I apologise. First question, what improvements or money, S106 monies has been put to one side to improve larger scheme improvements going forward? Maybe not today, maybe not 2 years' time, but maybe 3 or 4 years' time. Has any S106 monies from this application, apart from the sustainability actions, has any money been put aside to improve the actual junctions going forward in the future? Secondly, I was going to raise the traffic modelling, whether this included SA20, but you've confirmed it has, thank you. And I can understand the queries and the frustrations of the fact that Surrey has come to the conclusion that they haven't worked collaboratively with West Sussex, because it is a key element of SA19, but I accept what you're saying. Surrey's have raised no objection based on sustainability. And I think that gives us a different aspect of how now the MPPF and West Sussex view alleviating traffic and transport congestion. It's less about trying to solve the problems through actually expanding the network. It's now putting in cycling and other sustainable routes, which at the end of the day doesn't address the key issue of people need their cars and use their cars. So 2 questions there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
So existing contributions that we have in the pack, essentially from developers that have already paid us, is approximately £1.2 million. There are other contributions that have been secured but haven't been paid yet. Either the development hasn't commenced or the trigger point for paying, which is another £150,000 that we're due. This application is to provide a contribution. I think the total package is approximately £700,000. Some of that money is ring-fenced to the improvements to the rights of way, which I think Steve may correct me, leaves approximately £530,000 to provide the improvements that Surrey are requesting and to go into the pot for essentially the corridor study. But within the 106, and what's already been said, that needs to be spent locally. So within my suggested wording for the contribution, it looks at the A22 corridor, the bus improvements that have been suggested and be looked at as part of that study, but encompassing anything else within that section that has been looked at within the transport assessment for this application.
Thank you very much. Councillor Reeves.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I agree with a lot of the previous speakers, especially about the principle of development and but also the terrible traffic problems in this area. I think more buses along Crawley Down Road would be really good, and so the developer should contribute to that, ideally, perhaps through this corridor study when that comes out. I would like to see a condition regarding the surface of the bridleway, because even walking down there is a problem. Certainly you can't do it with a pushchair or a wheelchair, and it would be difficult to cycle. And I do think you could get a lot of traffic off the road because of the primary school being there, if you could get people to use the bridleway. But it has to be smooth, it has to be not subject to flooding, therefore there might have to be a boardwalk over the Fellbridge water, and it needs sensitive lighting so it can be used all year round. Is there any way we can put that in a condition rather than waiting for West Sussex? Because, sorry, frankly, you know, we'd need a time scale. I'm waiting for a path in my ward. I don't know when we're going to get it. Lastly, I'd like to say this is the first time in 5 years I've ever heard a developer actually mention having a swift brick in every house. I think that is wonderful. Well done to Barrett David Wilson, and well done for consulting on the Make Space for Girls. I'm the only female member in this committee. I've never heard that mentioned by a developer before either. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to confirm that the bridleway will be upgraded by a contribution that is provided to the West Sussex Rights of Way team. Generally, when they get developer funding in, it's done an awful lot quicker than anything that has to come out of West Sussex's own budgets.
If I could make a comment from the chair at this point, actually, you mentioned public transport along there. I mean, there is a half-hourly service in the daytime that passes this site, and then an hourly service that would go to the hospital on the main road on the 264. But there is very little public bus service early in the morning or in the evening after 6 o'clock, and it would certainly help with the site if there could be additional services out of those hours. Councillor Prescott.
Thank you, Chairman. I acknowledge this is allocated plan and further acknowledge the transport challenges, but I do support Councillor Jackman's comments on encouraging people to walk into East Grinstead and to use public transport, as you've just alluded to. I think it's a good, well-designed scheme. However, for local residents, and no one has really touched on this, it will be disruptive, and it will be disruptive during the construction period, and that's often the bit that people forget. And whilst the bridleway is quite rightly going to be upgraded, can I ask that within the construction plan, access is prohibited, construction access across the bridle path is prohibited, because a lifetime in construction tells me the first dumper driver that needs to go from A to B will do so. And I think we need to make very clear that the safety of local residents who are already going to be disrupted is paramount during the construction period. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sweatman,
thank you, Chairman. Yeah, thank you for all the comments that have been made, and I have to totally agree with the Councillor Whittaker's comments, what he's made, and Councillor Peacock, my East Grinstead colleagues, and I've lived in East Grinstead for well over 40 years now, and the A22 and that junction around the Star Junction is just getting worse and worse and worse, and it does put off businesses coming into the town if they've got to sit in traffic. So this development as a whole, through planning reasons, I can't really object to it. Even on highways matter, the inspector refers to as to a high bar for refusing it on highways grounds. So I think, and with no objections from the highways authorities, I don't think we've got anywhere to go on this regards the traffic situation, although in practice, it is absolutely severe, and the Star Junction, as you've alluded to, is severe. So I'm just wondering, when all this money from other developments is going to be, whether we're going to have something actually physically done. So I'll leave it there on highways, because Councillor Risk and Councillor Peacock have said quite a bit on the highways issues, which I agree. But I just want to go on to the, just a quick point. Why is it that we have to wait for the 50th dwelling before any pedestrian improvements have to be made? That seems like a cut thing. And also, I just want to ask, where on the smaller parcel of land, where the houses, gardens are quite shallower to where the play area is, I just wondered what adequate boundary treatment is going to be there, whether it's going to be just fencing or whether it's going to be green shrubbery. Obviously, that doesn't want to grow too tall, otherwise it's going to block the light from the gardens, but there's got to be some adequate screening between the play area and those houses along that parcel. So I'll leave it there for a moment, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. In terms of the first question regarding the condition that Surrey have referred to for the public improvements to the footways. Yeah, so it's condition 25 on page 100, refers to the 50th occupation of the 50th unit on site. In terms of justifying a planning condition, as members know, they have to meet the tests that's set out in the planning practice guidance, that they are reasonable, necessary, etc. So I think it's been pitched at the occupation of the 50th unit because it would be at that point that there would be a need for that mitigation to be in place once you get up to that sort of level of units of occupation. So that's what Surrey have suggested. So that's what we've put forward. The query about the boundary treatment at this area, all along here, but this area in particular, where the locally equipped area for play is, yes, there will be a need for some boundary treatment along there, as we saw from the site visit. The boundary treatment is low fencing at the moment, only sort of waist height, so there will be a need for new fencing and or planting to go there. That will be controlled by planning conditions, so the further details of that will come forward. But it is an inevitable part of this site being allocated for development that there would be a change to the boundary treatment on those rear gardens, because at the moment they do have low post and rail fencing because they just look out onto a field that is private land. That will obviously change as part of the site being allocated for development. And just to go back, I think, to Councillor Prescott's query, reconstruction, there will be a requirement for a construction management plan to be submitted for this application. There's various things that we want to be clear about in that plan, and yes, obviously one of them will be to make sure that vehicles aren't going across that bridle way. Because it's marked by trees on either side, I would expect there to be tree protection fencing all the way along, so it just won't be physically possible to drive across as you suggested. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Whitaker.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for allowing me to come back. It's just it's a request and a plea, really, subject to the vote. Can I request that the District Council and the applicant seriously look at the wording of the 106 document to potentially include a future 278 works agreement for that junction that has been widely discussed this afternoon. The corridor study that's been mentioned by our County Council colleague is ongoing. That work they are prioritising over the next 6 to 12 months. But it's a plea. You've heard the passion and the frustration in East Grinstead, which you're well aware of anyway. But it's just a plea in when you're discussing and finalising the 106, could you please consider it? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm sure if this application does get approved, that once the corridor study has been completed, that councillors will be putting a lot of pressure on our own officers and the County Council to get the recommendations carried out and the money that's been accumulated spent. Right, if no further members wish to speak, can I have a proposer for the recommendation, please? Right, Councillor Sweatman and Councillor Press. That's good, thank you very much. All right, in that case, please, can we move to the vote as per the recommendation on page 12, sorry. Right, the vote is closed. There's 11 votes in favour, 1 against, no abstentions. Therefore, the recommendation on page 12 is carried. I will, for the benefit of people watching online, and it is quite long, read it out. It is recommended that planning permission be granted subject to the completion of a satisfactory S106 legal agreement to secure affordable housing, infrastructure contributions, Ashdown forest mitigation and the suggested conditions in Appendix A. Recommendation B is recommended that if the applicants have not entered into a satisfactory S106 legal agreement to secure the affordable housing, biodiversity, net gain and infrastructure payments and highways works by the 12th of December 2024, then the application should be refused at the discretion of the Assistant Director, Planning and Sustainable Economy for the following reasons. The proposal fails to provide the required infrastructure contributions to serve the development and the required affordable housing. The proposal therefore conflicts with policies DP20, DP31 of the Mid-Sussex District Plan 2014 to 31 and policies SAGEN and SA19 of the Site Allocation Development Plan document of 2022. The proposal does not adequately mitigate the potential impact on the Ashdown Forest Special Protection Area and Special Area of Conservation and would therefore be contrary to the Conservation, Habitats and Species Regulations of 2010. Policy DP17 of the Mid-Sussex District Plan 2014 to 31 and Policy EG16 of the East Grinstead Neighbourhood Plan. Right, thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 7, but prior to that, while we change officers, we'll have a 10 minutes break. So can we reconvene at 20 to 4, please? Right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We move on to item 7, DM 240981, home base 219 to 225 London Road, East Grinstead, RH 191HA. I'll ask Rachel Richardson to make the presentation, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, members should refer to the update sheet where points of error are to be noted and amended. Moving on to slide 1, which is the title page. This is the former Homebase store, 219 to 225 London Road, East Grinstead, West Sussex. And the proposal is for the demolition of existing DIY retail unit and construction of Class EA retail food store with associated parking, landscaping and access works. And as you can see from the slide, various additional information and amended drawings, including highways and landscaping boundary treatment, have been received. Slide 2 shows the location plan and illustrates the application boundary as outlined in red. London Road is situated along the southern boundary. The existing access is to be retained in the central position within the southern boundary just here. Houses in Green Hedges Avenue adjoin the site to the east, along here, and the disused railway line borders the site to the northwest, along here. This is a local wildlife site known as Worth Way. The site is generally flat, with the highway to the south in an elevated position. The site is located approximately 600 metres northwest of East Grinstead town centre and is within the built-up area boundary as defined in the district plan. It also lies within the Ashdown Forest, Special Area of Protection and Special Area of Conservation. This slide shows the proposed layout of the site. The length of the new Lidl store is positioned against the north boundary with parking and landscaping to the east and western sides. As said above, the existing access is to be retained. This slide shows the existing floor plans of the former Homebase building. At ground floor, it also illustrates the external nursery retail area, which is here. And this slide shows the internal arrangement at ground floor of the proposed building. The next slide is the proposed roof plan, which shows the proposed solar panels across the flat roof, the plant and proposed acoustic screen around it, which is outlined in dotted orange. This slide shows the existing elevations of the existing former Homebase building. And this slide is the proposed elevations showing the appearance of the Lidl store. The southwest elevation will front onto London Road. The northeast elevation is at the rear of the site and adjacent to houses backing onto the site in Green Hedges Avenue. The southeast elevation is the main frontage of the building facing into the car park area, and the northwest elevation is the elevation that backs onto the disused railway line. This slide shows the existing proposed southwest elevation which fronts onto London Road, showing the height comparison between the former Homebase store, the existing building, and the proposed store for Lidl. And it shows that the overall height of the existing building is 7.8 metres above ground level, and the proposed height is 7.1 metres high at its highest point, which then reduces down to 5.1 metres. This is showing the proposed street scene, and it shows the existing trees which are to be retained as part of the scheme and the landscaping on the frontage. Slide 11 is the proposed landscaping and site finishes. Everything in green that you can see along London Road bordering Green Hedges Avenue and the Disused Railway is the soft landscaped areas. The red vertical lines illustrate the reinforced concrete access ramp. The blue area identifies the existing tarmac and concrete areas to be resurfaced. And the dark grey areas around the building are indicating the areas which are to be paved. Proposed boundary treatments, you can see the green line along the disused railway line to the north, and to the south you can see the green line which indicates existing boundary treatment which is to be renovated. The blue dotted line which borders and backs onto Green Hedges Avenue is indicating an acoustic timber fence of 2 metres in height. And then you have a purple dotted line around the delivery ramp, just along here. And that is proposing a 3 metre high acoustic timber fence. And then the orange dotted line shows the acoustic screen around the plant on the roof. Moving on to my photographs, showing the front of the existing building. Car park on the southern front part of the site, here. And this is the delivery area, the service area, and it shows the houses in Green Hedges Avenue. This slide shows the double lane access which exists on London Road into the site, and the boundary treatment along here, which is to be renovated and refurbished, together with the character of the street scene. And finally, this is the outside nursery retail area at the back of the former home base existing building, and it shows the side of 47 Green Hedges Avenue. And this one shows the boundary treatment adjoining 45 Green Hedges Avenue and along the back of houses 27 to 43 Green Hedges Avenue. Slide 15 is recommendation A. It is recommended that planning permission be granted subject to the completion of a section 106 legal agreement to secure the monitoring fee for the travel plan and the conditions as set out in Appendix A. Recommendation B is it is recommended that if the applicants have not signed a planning obligation securing the necessary travel plan and monitoring fee by the 12th of December, then permission be refused at the discretion of the Divisional Lead for Planning and Economy for the following reasons. And this is that the application fails to comply with the policies DP 20 and 21 of the Mid-Sussex District Plan in respect of securing the appropriate mitigation measures, travel plan, required to mitigate the impact of the proposed development. The main issues for consideration are set out in the officer report, and members will be well aware legislation requires the application to be determined in accordance with the development plan unless material circumstances indicate otherwise. It is considered that the application is in accordance with the development plan, and this is the proper starting point for decision making. However, the Council also must have regard to other material considerations, including the National Planning Policy Framework, in determining this planning application. As set out in your officer's report, the planning issues for consideration are principle and impact on the town centre, design and character, residential amenity, highways, drainage, ecology, sustainability and the Ashdown Forest. It is necessary, like with any planning application, to weigh up the planning balance in terms of the issues and the weight attributed to each. The principle of this proposal is considered to be acceptable. There is an extant planning permission under DM 2028-26 that allows the applicant, Lidl, to operate out of the existing store on site, which can be implemented any time up to January 2026. The current application for a new build retail store involves a slightly smaller unit than the previous change of use scheme. The turnover will therefore be slightly lower and its impact slightly less. The existing former home-based store has a gross internal floor area of 3,255 square metres, which is over 2 floors. This is not included in the external area of the nursery. The proposed replacement building has a sales floor area on only one floor of 2,004 square metres, which is about 38% less. Under DM 2028-26, it was previously considered that there were no sequentially preferable sites suitable or available, and the proposal was not considered to have significant adverse impacts on vitality and viability of East Grinstead Town Centre or prejudice planned development within the centre. Furthermore, it is established that the proposed development on the site will be sited in an out-of-centre location which is accessible and well connected to the town centre. The information submitted with this current application reaffirms this position, and it is not considered that there has been any material change in circumstance. There are not considered to be any relevant policies contained within the development plan that would prevent the loss of the former home base as a DIY store, and the sequential and retail impact assessments conclude that the proposal is compliant with policy criteria. It is considered that there are no grounds to refuse this application having regard to principle of the development in this location and its impact on the vitality and viability of East Grinstead Town Centre. The proposed design is respectful of the character and appearance of the existing built environment, which is mixed and has a variety of building forms, heights and vernacular. The building would be lower in height and rotated through 90 degrees so that its frontage onto London Road is less than the existing building, which spans the width of the site. This is considered positive in the planning balance. The development is not considered to have a significant impact on residential amenity for the occupants of neighbouring properties. This is addressed at 12.39 in your officer's report. At 12.46, the report states that the existing building, by reason of its length and height, would be more prominent in terms of building mass and scale than the proposed replacement building. This issue is positive in the planning balance. In terms of highways, it is not considered to be prejudicial to highway and/or pedestrian safety, nor result in a severe impact upon the local highway network over and above the existing use. West Sussex County Council Local Highway Authority has not objected to the application. The application is accompanied by a travel plan for which a monitoring fee will be secured through a Section 106 legal agreement. Your officer report at 12.63 confirms that the proposed development would result in less trips and vehicular movements compared to the extant planning permission in 2020. The previous 2020 scheme was considered acceptable in terms of impact on highway and traffic. At the request of the Local Highway Authority, the applicants provided information on personal injury accident records with the location of all PIAs, both from the previous assessment and the latest one. On receipt of this information, the Local Highway Authority had no further comments. The existing access will be retained and upgraded in accordance with highway standards, and it is considered that the proposal is acceptable in highway terms. At 12.70 of your officer's report, it confirms that the Council's drainage engineers have no objection and that the proposal to discharge surface and foul water to the public sewer on London Road as per the existing situation is acceptable. There is also a proposed betterment over the existing situation which restricts discharge rates. In relation to ecology, the applicants have agreed that biodiversity net gain is applicable and that to meet the 10% requirements, they will need to do this off-site, either by a registered off-site provider or statutory credits. This will be secured by means of statutory condition. Any permission will also include conditions to mitigate impact on harm on wildlife such as birds and bats. This is neutral in the planning balance. The proposed food store would conform to the MPPF's fundamental presumption in favour of sustainable development and the three overarching objectives, including economic, social and environmental factors. It will provide 40 new jobs and is well connected to the town centre and public transport. It will generate an estimated convenience goods annual turnover of approximately 12 to 13 million. The proposed building will include the use of PV solar roof panels. EVC, electric vehicle charging points, are also proposed, and it will incorporate both passive and active design strategies to take advantage of natural daylighting, enhance fabric efficiencies to reduce heat gains and or losses. Principles of sustainability are ingrained in Lidl's operation. This is positive in the planning balance. The development is not considered to have any significant effects alone or in combination on the Ashdown Forest from the proposed development. Therefore, taking all the points into consideration, there are compelling reasons to approve this application. The scheme is considered acceptable and is compliant with policy criteria of the adopted development plan. It is recommended that permission be granted, And that brings my presentation to an end, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Right, we have one speaker, Adam Fosdick from Lidl. Again, I don't know whether you were here earlier, but you're restricted to 3 minutes. I will try and indicate when there is a minute left, and the 3 minutes starts when you start your presentation.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. I am the Head of Property for Lidl in the South East. In January 2021, this planning authority consented our planning application for a change of use to the then existing Homebase unit, allowing us to trade as a discount supermarket from the current building. Whilst we were naturally overjoyed at the prospect of being able to bring additional choice and competition to the residents of East Grinstead, in the months that followed that consent, whilst Homebase were winding down their operations, I went back to the drawing board to see if I could do even better for the people of East Grinstead. I was delighted when the Board of Directors signed off on my multi-million-pound investment plan to completely overhaul the site by building a brand new, modern, sustainable and greener building. We therefore submitted our revised plans and have worked with your officers and consultees to refine those to the proposals here before you for your consideration today. We especially noted that officers and residents were concerned over the potential impact of increased traffic to the site versus the now closed Homebase. However, as confirmed and accepted by officers, the existing Homebase saw an average of 166 vehicle movements on a weekday afternoon. Converting the current building to a supermarket would increase those 166 trips to 204 in the weekday PM. Our proposals to demolish the current building and build a bespoke modern store actually results in a smaller footprint building, as we find that this is the most efficient model and economic solution for our customers and operations. That smaller sales area reduces the vehicle trip generation. The weekday PM trips are now forecast to be only 173 journeys. That's only 7 more than the former Homebase, but a colossal 31 fewer journeys than if we implement the consent we already have. Highways have therefore accepted our proposals as policy compliant and having no major adverse impact on the highways network. I personally feel the true decision before members today is whether they agree that a policy-compliant full redevelopment of the site to demolish the existing 25-year-old building in favour of a modern, vastly more sustainable building, including electric vehicle charging spaces, solar panels and contributions towards local biodiversity improvements, is the better choice for East Grinstead than simply converting an existing, tired and dated building. But I'm here today to confirm to members and to the public that Lidl are committed to investment in East Grinstead and will be seeking to open a store for residents by November 25. In summary, this multi-million-pound investment in East Grinstead will deliver new jobs and increased local shopping choices for residents. With the Homebase now closed, our proposed store will bring this site back into productive use, generating around 40 new jobs. I therefore hope that you will accept your officer's recommendation by granting planning permission to this policy-compliant proposal. Many thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. There's nothing to come back on there, Rachel, is there? No. Okay, so we'll move straight to comments from members, please. Does he wish to?
I'll speak then.
Right, Councillor Sweatman.
All right, thank you, Chairman. Obviously, members have read the report. It's got stamp permission so they can go in there tomorrow and operate as Lidl's food store, with Highways having absolutely no objection. So, in effect, I don't think there's any reason to refuse this application. However, I do have concerns about the traffic issues. Homebase is selling different types of products to a food store. So I think you alluded to earlier that the increase in traffic into that existing store is going to increase significantly. Judging by the amount of people that go into Aldi, a couple of doors away, it's constant in and out traffic. If you're coming from town going north to turn right into the store, there's only enough room for 2 cars to pull over, and the chef wants to pull over to turn right. Now, I know Highway's got objection, but to me, that is going to back the traffic up. If they can't back up, they're going to go down to the mini roundabout to turn round. And at certain times of the day when the factory estates kick out, the schools kick out, that is often blocked up from Lingfield Road to come onto that roundabout. It's coming up going south from the north onto that roundabout. So people try to go around the roundabout. It doesn't bear thinking about what that is going to be like. Notwithstanding the fact that occasionally we had blockages at McDonald's coming out of Moat Road. It's just horrendous. You just can't get out because the people trying to get into McDonald's, and this has been the case on several occasions, it backs the traffic right the way up to the Lingfield Road roundabout. That's my only concerns, and I'll be, hopefully I'm wrong, but like I say, I've just had to make that point because although we can't object to the application of the highways grounds because they've got no objection, I'm just seriously concerned about the traffic issues in the future. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Right. Thank you. My one particular question is, it says on part 1251, there's been a noise consultant has produced a noise assessment and has recommended acoustic fences, particularly to protect those residential houses in Green Hedges Avenue. Obviously, the noise can be produced either by deliveries and forklifts and the like operating in that area, and also as a food store, they obviously need a cold area, cold store, and freezers. So obviously there'll be a certain amount of plant room. I can't quite see on the diagrams where the plant room is accurate. Noted on the particular plan, but obviously acoustic nuisance obviously has to be mitigated from any form where noise is generated. So, do we know where the plant room of this particular development is? Where you've got obviously cooling apparatus and so on.
Thank you. So the plant is shown on the roof, which has the, let me just find the appropriate drawing. You can see the orange dotted line here, and that's the acoustic screen that's
Are you able to share it, please?
Sorry?
Are you able to share it on the screen?
Oh. Why isn't it?
Or is it? All right, okay, sorry.
Yeah, so the orange dotted line is the acoustic screen which is proposed around the plant to protect any noise from nearby neighbouring properties.
Well, that's from both the plant machinery noise and the noise from deliveries and
The delivery bay is here.
Yes.
And that has a separate acoustic screen that's being proposed of 3 metres in height.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, the irony of it is the last application we had, I was standing in a field listening to aircraft coming in. Couldn't have a proper conversation with anybody. But no, I was comparing this one to the one in Burgess Hill, my local one, and the intensity of the road usage in comparison, and also the ingress and egress into the site. It looks quite easy to come out of the site, even to turn right. It's poorly organised at Burgess Hill, and I think Liddell should do something about it. But coming in, I think Councillor Sweatman has highlighted the issue of trying to turn right across the traffic, queuing up, getting into the site, or having to go up to the roundabout. So I'd be interested to know if that model is going to work satisfactorily. Otherwise, there's no reason to refuse the application.
comment on that, Rachel? I mean, County have said they can't see an issue, but yeah, go on. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously we're aware of the concerns, but, ultimately you need to look at the extant planning permission, which they could go in today, operate out the existing home-based store, which is bigger. So, this proposal is likely, given it's a smaller store, theoretically could have a lesser impact than if they operated from the existing store today. So we appreciate the concerns, but given the extant permission, the fact that the Highways Authority have not objected to this application, did not object to Lidl operating out of the larger home-based store as is on site, then, there's nothing more that we can do in respect of that concern, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Whitaker.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the speaker. And as an East Grinstead councillor, I welcome a new business potentially coming into the town and what will be a great investment. However, I would echo exactly the comments of Councillor Swetman. This is actually in my ward as well, and I feel like I haven't got out of bed the wrong way today, but I'm going to mention transport yet again, because the existing extant consent was sneaked through really on the back of COVID under what I would call under the radar on the 8th of January 2021. So I don't think there was much due diligence given on that particular application. And the traffic situation remains the same. Effectively, 105 parking spaces, which is give or take the same capacity as there is now. One access point only, whereas if you look at the Aldi store, they've got a one-way system, they've got 2 access points, which is a crucial difference. I red flagged the traffic on this when I was asked as a ward councillor in May, did a fairly strong note to the officer. And in answer to Mr Ashdown, I can't remember the last time West Sussex Highways objected to any scheme, frankly, in the last 7 years that I've ever known. I think they just seem to kind of almost rubber stamp things. We didn't do the site visit on Monday, which I would have liked to have done, because particularly for members that aren't from East Grinstead, it's important to get the local contextual background and to see visually exactly the complications of this particular part of the A22. It's very constricted with a bridge, a roundabout, several road junctions, a very, very busy pedestrian crossing which is immediately adjacent to the building. The presented travel plan, frankly, some of the wording in that is, I think, is partial. So to ask cyclists to come and cycle away with 4 or 5 bags of shopping down to the Imberhorn estate or beyond that is just not, we're not living in the real world that some of these consultants. There's a Glanville letter that was on the portal the 25th of November 2020. And I'd just like to read it out because certainly, from my point of view, there is going to be serious traffic congestion there. We've seen it with McDonald's. Sometimes they steward it, sometimes they don't, and it's a constant thing. So this is the Glanville comment. The TA identifies that as a direct result of the proposed development, the site access arm to the site access junction is anticipated to be operating in excess of its design capacity by 2025, thereby generating significant queuing within the site. As a consequence, the queue of vehicles exiting the site would block the path of vehicles entering the site. This would result in traffic queuing back from the site into the public highway, a situation that would be detrimental to road safety and highway capacity. So I think we all know that's going to happen. So my plea, second plea of the day on traffic here, is can we please introduce a planning condition that obligates the site operator to positively steward the parking road situation with high-vis jackets, as occasionally McDonald's do, because I strongly feel that this will be required. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone want to comment on that or not?
We'll see what the other.
Okay, Councillor Avery.
Thank you, Chairman. I visited the site on Tuesday after our visit to Fellbridge, and I can see from the legal point of view the reason why they want to renew the facility, because it's compromised in many respects by its previous occupation, and I found that the traffic situation on site very confusing, and the fact you've got to go out onto Green Hedges Avenue as an escape route again was not exactly ideal. Generally I do support this new facility, because the home base operation is a completely different operation to a Lidl, and one can see, actually being in the store, that it doesn't work perfectly, and the upgrade will be a bonus in terms of development of business and jobs, etc., etc. So on that basis, I would support it. Going back to the traffic issue, I've just been speaking to Councillor Peacock here, and we're both equally bamboozled by how these traffic reports and trips notifications get developed, because we can't quite understand how a Lidl store functioning fully on full throttle will get only 7 more traffic movements than the home base, which is a more occasional thing, I think. Anyway, overall, I think it's a great improvement to the existing situation, and I support it. Thank you.
Councillor Peacock.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I echo the comments of Councillor Sweatman and Councillor Whittaker and many around the room on the traffic. I do scratch my head that the new store, even if it's smaller, can only generate 7 additional trips. But there again, that's the evidence we put forward. That's what Highways has recommended. It's nice to see, it's good to see a new retailer in the town, that site being refreshed, open, employing 40 new people. My only comment is I would fully back the condition proposed by Councillor Whittaker, that there is a steward on hand at peak hours to sort the traffic out, because we have had serious snarl-ups in that area of town for McDonald's. McDonald's is on the one-way system. It backs up through the one-way system into where the Lidl store will be, and it creates serious issues. So I'm prepared to accept and back this proposal based on the Highways data and the Highways recommendation, but I really do agree with Councillor Whittaker. Please, let's have a condition for a steward at McDonald's, because that's what it's resorted to with McDonald's at peak hours on a number of occasions. So thank you.
Do either of you want to comment?
Thank you, Chairman. Note the concerns from members on the point of a condition. My view is obviously it's something that, in terms of the use of any planning condition, it needs to meet the 6 tests. I don't think it does. I appreciate the desire for it. But clearly, if there was a highway safety issue that required that would have been flagged up, or we would expect that to be flagged up through the West Sussex Highways response. But obviously, what you do have the applicant in the room. They will want their customers to enter in and out of their site in a free-flowing manner, because it's in their favour for that to happen. So I'm sure as part of the overall management of the site and the management of the car park and how the traffic flows through the car park and out the car park, Lidl will want to make sure that operates in a safe and a coherent manner, which makes sure you don't have these situations, which obviously McDonald's appear to be doing when they highlight an issue. So they've highlighted an issue. There is no planning condition there which requires them, but they do that in order because they need to manage their customers through their site, and I would imagine Lidl would want to do the same if the situation requires it on this site. So I hear the concerns, but I certainly don't believe that the planning condition is appropriate in this instance, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Bates.
Just an informative to Councillor Whittaker, actually, about his cycling issue, was that there is cargo bikes.
Thank you. Councillor Prescott.
Just really echoing Stephen's comments. It's not for us as councillors to dictate how Lidl do their business, because if we do, then we need to mandate the training standards that traffic individual should be trained to, and that we don't run their business, they run their business. And whilst it's unfortunate, and I know the site well and it is a nightmare, there are times when I'd take a 20-mile diversion rather than go through East Grinstead because the traffic is so bad. The bottom line is, as has been said, that this site can run tomorrow with no objection, and it's a damn sight ugly bloody thing at the moment, if you'll forgive me. And what's proposed is a really good development. It sustains jobs, it's a sustainable building, and I think if Lidl are having problems getting traffic in and out, they will make that decision. They will ensure that individual is trained properly within their liability, because it's no liability of ours. So I think that I would fully support this development. I think it's first class.
I think it's also fair to say that if there are subsequent problems, then County Highways would be mandated to, in terms of accidents and things, County Highways would be mandated to have another look at it. Councillor Peacock.
Just a brief one. Thank you for allowing me to come back. Can I just ask politely and with respect that Lidl do consider it, because it's not NIMBYism, it's not trying to flag an issue that isn't there. It really has been an issue. And just the reputational risk to the Lidl brand, I think you should take it very, very serious and monitor it. So, all due respect, thank you.
If there's a need. Thank you. If there's a need. Yeah, if there's a need, yeah. Councillor Bergreen.
Yes, I certainly support this. It can only be an improvement. But I take Councillor Whittaker's point from within my own ward. I don't remember last time that the County Highways rejected anything, and that has quite often come up again and again in local comments, and made it difficult to oppose an application. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think as we discussed before, the problem is the bar is set very high in terms of highways refusing, and when we did discuss it with them, there was one application that they'd actually got, that they did actually get agreement that it was severe and was supported by an inspector, but the bar is very high, and it's an issue that, we come back to time and time again. Councillor Eaves.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that I do cycle to my local Lidl and shop there with my e-bike. It's not a problem. And in fact, on a Saturday afternoon, it's a really advised thing to do because it's difficult to park. And on the street where people emerge from that Lidl, as the drivers have got used to the concept, they've actually been more courteous. They've let each other in and out because they know how difficult it is to turn right into it. So to some extent, once drivers get used to it, they show more civility. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, well, if no other members wish to speak, could I have a proposer and seconder for the recommendation? Right, Councillor. And a seconder, please. Sorry, Councillor Prescott, thank you very much. Right, could we move to the vote, please? Okay, the vote is now closed. That is unanimous. The recommendation is passed by 12 votes to nil and no abstentions. So just to say again, I will repeat the recommendations. It's recommendation A. It's recommended that the Planning Permission be granted subject to the completion of a Section 106 legal agreement to secure the monitoring fee for the travel plan and the conditions set in Appendix A. Recommendation B is recommended that if the application has not signed a planning obligation securing the necessary travel plan and monitoring fee by the 12th of December 2024, then permission be refused at the discretion of the Divisional Lead for Planning and Economy for the following reasons. The application fails to comply with policies DP20 and DP21 of the Mid-Sussex District Plan in respect of securing the appropriate mitigation measures, travel plan, and required to mitigate the impact of proposed developments. Thank you very much. So I now move on to item 8, questions pursuant of Council Procedure Rule 10.2, due notice of which I have been given. There are none. Therefore, I would thank members and officers for their attendance and declare the meeting closed at 16:20. I'll just ask members to stay seated until the live stream is turned off, please. Right. Thank you very much, everybody.